Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
government involvement,
Well, that was actually strange. When they had the dinner for educate, right? It was someone some public, some private, some.
We'll start. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pacific Region Forum on Business and Management Communication. I'm Rosalie Tom, Professor of International Business and Associate Director of the David Lamb Center of International Communication. This afternoon, we're delighted to welcome back Dr. Zhenyi Li of Royal Roads University. Dr. Li is a native of China and received his Ph.D. from the University of Yavishkala. He has over 10 years of experience in training and research in intercultural communication. Dr. Li joined Royal Roads from the University of British Columbia. Dr. Li's presentation today is entitled A Tale of Two Cities, an intercultural observation of Olympic Games preparation in Vancouver and Beijing. Dr. Li's presentation will be followed by a question and answer period. Without further ado, I'll turn the podium to Dr. Li.
Well, nice to meet you all. Hi, Terry. Okay, thank you very much, Rosalie. Thanks for the invitation, and also I'm really excited to see quite many former colleagues and also our Royal Roads graduates and also new friends today. I'm really happy to have this time, this opportunity to share an academic research I started last year on comparing the preparation online for both Olympics, the 2008 and 2010 in Beijing and in Vancouver, respectively. Yeah. And as I said, it's quite a pure academic research, but one of the reasons I like to bring to today's forum is that I would like to first introduce what's the method and what's the findings of that research, and secondly, I would like to invite your critiques, because we actually have people working for VANOC sitting here today, which makes me a little bit shaking, and fortunately they are from Royal Roads University, so they won't say something too bad. One of the reasons I like to introduce is I picked this Olympic preparation as a case study, and I like to explore together with all of you on how we are going to use intercultural studies or intercultural perspective to study on non-interpersonal communication, because we've been used to the idea that intercultural communication is all about interpersonal communication. I'm from culture A and you are from culture B, and we probably will have some different understanding or misunderstanding because we are from different cultures, or very often you will hear that people's verbal or non-verbal communication can raise misunderstanding of these things. But the reason I pick up Olympic is that it's not an interpersonal communication. It's not. It's basically an organizational communication. It's one organization convey a message through different channels to a group of people, or usually we will say public, so that how people do things like that. And especially the Olympics, it's very interesting. Every 4 years, you have a new host city, and basically they are kind of paired now, like Beijing and Vancouver. And of course, Beijing's from the country I'm originally from, and Vancouver, so I'm living here, in BC. And so this is also very interesting to see, because these two cultures are quite familiar to me, and I like to see, if they are different ways of doing things, not because of a person's, culture, but because of the organizational differences. So that's a brief introduction now, on how we are going to work on this topic today, and also I'm not sure, if it's okay for everyone here to get to know each other a little bit. If you just say a brief word like what brought you here today, is that Olympic, or is that intercultural, is that both, or neither? So Hyoshin would like to start.
My name is Hyoshin Kim, and I work at Center for Communication at UBC, and I'm here for both Olympic Games and also intercultural comparisons.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
My name is Mark Wyszynski, and I also work at the Center for Intercultural Communication at UBC. And again, both reasons, Zhenyi, and the topic is interesting considering the Vancouver will be hosting
Thank you. My name is Alan English, also with CIC at UBC, and of course the intercultural side interests me. I've also just returned from China, so that's the China-Canada part too. I can't really say the Olympics beyond just as a spectator and watching.
My name is Patrick Gorbani. I'm a Ph.D. student at Simon Fraser University. Cross-cultural is my focus, and I've lived in China for 10 years, so this is also another major interest for me.
Thank you. Anders, please take us for the interesting Well, can we?
My name is Bill Liu. I'm the director of Culture Communication Program at Data Lab Center, and this is a very interesting topic for me too, because I'm from China and I'm living in Vancouver. So and my career path is in communication, particularly cross-cultural communication. So,
Thank you.
My name is Connie Rujano, and I'm a student to take the Canadian immigration laws hosted by UBC this coming January. And I came because I'm interested to learn about intercultural communications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Terry Greenberg, and I'm a student in the master's program at Royal Rose University, and Zhenyi is my professor. And I'm, of course, interested in the intercultural side.
My name is Meizu. I'm from Langan College. My major is Asian studies, so that's what I'm here for.
Okay, thank you. So can we?
Yeah, my name is Ryan. I'm HR consultant. I focus on immigration and education issues, so I'm quite interested in the intercultural aspect.
Thank you.
My name is Pamela. I teach some communication courses, although not intercultural. But I'm personally interested in anything intercultural, and of course anything to do with China and Canada.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Yolanda, originally from Belgium, and I'm interested in the Olympic Games and also in the intercultural aspect.
Thank you.
My name is Joan Pollock. I'm just here as an individual. I've been to Beijing. I'm interested in both how the two cities are handling the Olympics and also the intercultural.
Was that recently?
2004.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Let's start.
My name is Ruth Reynolds. I'm a marketing communication specialist, and I'm interested in working with Olympic sponsors and licensees. So,
thank you.
My name is Bernard Saint-Jacques. I was professor at UBC for 23 years. And one day the president of a Japanese university came and asked me how much I was making. And I said, I'll pay you twice the amount you're making here. And I spent 23 years in Nagoya opening a graduate department in intercultural communication. And I'm a member of the CETA Japan, CETA Europe, and CETA BC as well. And so I was interested in your topic today.
Thank you.
I'm the Dean of Social Sciences at Langara. I also teach Asia-Canada Studies up at the SFU campus and Olympic Studies at UBC. So I'm sort of interested in a variety of those things. And in, I hate to say, 1980, I worked for the Chinese Olympic Committee in Beijing for a while. So I have a mixed interest.
Well,
And my name is Brian Pennant. So.
Really glad to have you to share with us some insights you have.
Yeah, my name is Claude Adams. I'm a freelance journalist. I'm also doing some contract work for the British Columbia government in an Olympic-related project. And I'm interested in the differences in how the two cultures see the value of the Olympic.
Like Claude, I'm a former student of Royal Road University, studying with Zhenyi. My name is Bas Brusje. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I now work at Van Hoek, and obviously I'm interested in anything that Zhenyi has to tell.
My name is Miro Sergatic. I'm a columnist at the Vancouver Sun and have a background in China. I worked there and I'm interested in what you're talking about.
I won't criticize for the sun too much.
My name is Peter Ng. I guess I'm an honorary graduate of SFU. So, and I'm here because Beijing and Vancouver are the two cities that are very close to my heart.
And two cultures.
Yeah, certainly. My name is Tom Andrews, and I have numerous connections in intercultural studies and with 2010 Legacies. Not directly connected with NAMA, but with 2010 Legacies. So I'm very interested in what you have to say on all these different multifaceted levels.
Okay, thank you.
Like most of you who are academics here, I'm not a practitioner. I'm an architect. I'm here to listen and to learn.
Hi, my name is Ariane Pelé. I'm a postgraduate research fellow at the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada. And I'm interested by the organization of the Olympic Games by the Beijing government. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Roger Cooley, taught English in China in Beijing in 1980.
Thank you.
I'm Janet Lam. I'm a student of Harbour College, and I'm taking the disability study program, so I'm kind of interested in that.
Hello everybody, my name is Cronin and I'll be coordinating this forum. And I'm also an international business student at SFU, so I'm very interested in this forum.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, do we need to introduce two of you? Or? Okay, so back to professors here. Thank you very much. As I've seen, we basically share the interest on, would like to take a look how intercultural studies can examine this kind of event or this kind of, whichever we will say, this kind of communication, or even we can say it's kind of propaganda. So before we start to step into these two cities or the preparation they are doing, I would like us, to first review something basically on the Olympics, but this time not from a sport or sport management viewpoint, but mostly from the cultural or intercultural viewpoint. So the Olympic Games in this paper is perceived, as a vehicle promoting two messages. Let me switch. Actually, I can switch to my PowerPoint because I'm going to use this PDF shortly. There are two messages, basically, for the Olympic Games to promote. First is the international understanding through sporting competition, which is stated by Piero-Freddi in 1894 when he started the modern Olympic Games. Another one is the international visibility of a city and its economic and cultural attractions in view of the fact that this has become increasingly significant and dominant since the Summer Games in Los Angeles, 1984. The efforts by the hosting cities nowadays document a collection of vivid and interesting intercultural portfolios, for scholarly review. Therefore, we pick up Vancouver and Beijing as the two examples, and also because they are the most recent, most current one, and to compare in this research. And it's also intended to demonstrate, how intercultural studies can contribute to this kind of non-interpersonal communication field, which might not be fully recognized. And we will set up two research questions here, because Beijing and Vancouver they are so different. They are so different from each other, but they are preparing the same thing, basically, the Olympic Games. So we'd like to compare the two aspects related to interpreting the Olympic spirit to the public. Of course, you organize these Olympic Games. You like the public. Not only your natives in the local cities, but also people from all around the world to share the game and the Olympic spirit. And here, what we want to see is the Olympic spirit, which is clearly defined. In a moment, I will show you that. Olympic spirit is defined by the International Olympic Committee, and which is assumed to be interpreted, represented, and transferred identically all around the world. Because you bid for that, you say, okay, let me organize this big party for you, and of course you made a commitment that you will transfer the spirit identically to the world. And what we are going to compare is are Beijing and Vancouver doing the same thing? Transferring the same message? Are they doing exactly the same, thing the IOC, International Olympic Committee, is expecting? And if yes, why so? If not, why? And secondly, the Olympic spirit, presumably, it's rooted back to Judeo-Christian religion, Roman law, Greek ideas on politics, philosophy, art, and science, seems to have fewer barriers to be accepted in Vancouver than in Beijing. But the reality is that we have already witnessed more resistance, complaints, and critics during the bidding and the preparation periods in Vancouver than in Beijing. And the question is why? Basically, we say, okay, so if do you like coffee or tea? And presumably, many Western people will prefer coffee, and the Eastern people would prefer tea. However, what we found out is, for example, the sales of coffee nowadays in China just kind of increased a lot, right? It's different from our assumption, and the sales of tea in Western countries, especially herb tea, it's going up as well. So something very interesting is we think, okay, organize an Olympic Games in Vancouver, it should be an easy job, because not only Montreal organized one, but Canada basically belongs to the Western culture, and Olympic is a Western thing. So it should be easy, right? It's just another game, another party, another event. However, we've seen, starting from the year 2000 or even before that, Vancouver's experiencing quite a rough time, because there are people protesting that, there are people, disagree with that or something. However, you see, although Beijing lost the game, the bidding, for the 2000, Beijing, bid again and got the 2008, and we haven't seen too much complaints that, and seems everything organized smoothly, and the 2008 game is a kind of a sure thing will happen in that city with over 10 million people. So that's basically we will see, okay, so if we have the same thing, the same message, are they doing this? Are they doing this the thing in the same way? And also, why in Vancouver, such a Western culture-based city, is doing something more difficult, experiencing something more difficult? And also, the paper where the methodology we chose is called a cross-cultural comparative perspective, which is quite applicable as a main method to this kind of research. It's a proven, valid, practical for small-scale, in-depth cross-cultural research in previous studies. And to limit the scope of this research, because of course, if we study Olympics, probably we need to, read 100 books and surf 1,000 websites and 10,000 articles or whatsoever. So to limit the objective of this research, we only will examine texts and images from 3 official websites. So that's why we excluded Vancouver Sun, for example. So it's only the Olympic.org, the Olympic movement official website, Beijing 2008, which I have here, the official website, the Beijing 2008, and also the official website of Vancouver 2010. So these are basically like limited our research scope for this small-scale research. And furthermore, this paper will only report salient similarities and differences found in the study related to the interpretation of the Olympic spirit. We're not going to highlight each similarities or differences, but only the salient ones. Before we compare these things, we of course need to examine what are the expected messages to be transferred or to be broadcasted or to be communicated or across words. That's the Olympic spirit. And the first question is, what is the authentic Olympic spirit? So we need, of course, to go back to the Olympic movement, the charter. And there's a clear and direct answer. The Olympic spirit, or the goal of the Olympic movement, is to contribute to build a peaceful and better world by educating youth through sport practiced without discrimination of any kind, and in the Olympic spirit, which requires mutual understanding with a spirit of friendship, solidarity, and fair play. Of course, it's a long quote, but when we look at the charter, we can go to chapter, the fundamental principles. Just a minute. The fundamental principles, the first 6 one, I think I can put this on the full screen so we can see it. So when we examine these 6 fundamental principles from an intercultural perspective, we can see that the Olympic spirit, not to our surprise, is just a set of values rooted back to the Western, so-called the Western culture. And what we will say here is like, let me show you my comments. Basically, it's individualism, egalitarianism, harmoniousness, and universalism. These are the 4 basic fundamental values embedded in these 6 basic principles. So, for example, if we look at principle 1, Olympism is a philosophy of life. I actually have here, exalting and combining a balanced whole, the quality of body, will, and mind. So what is that? In our analysis, we'll say it's all about, harmonious. It's a balanced lifestyle. And then let's continue. Blending sport with culture and education, Olympism seeks to create a way of life based on the joy of effort, the educational value of good example, and the respect for universal, fundamental ethical principles. That's the universalism. So I won't, stay too long on, sentence by sentence. However, we can see, in each of these principles, there are those values embedded. And individualism. What is individualism? Individualism emphasizes individual rights, where choices should be respected, and they are prior to group-based decisions. That's individualism, right? And in this principle, we've seen, it's all emphasizing on, to protect and individual rights and to promote actually the individual choices and to respect, say, here every individual must, it's kind of any forms of discrimination, it's kind of, regards to a person. It's always focusing on the individual. Individual choices is respected, and it should be prior to the group-based decision. So I like the story like I read a few years ago about a Chinese woman when she first experienced her first culture shock when she got on board of KLM airline from Beijing to Holland. So she was asked by the cabin attendant about what kind of things she likes to drink. So it's a very simple question: coffee or tea? And she just felt kind of so shocked, like she started to cry. Because it's not a choice she was offered in 30 years. Which school to go, which job to take, which husband to marry. It's basically like all finally decided by the group, the family, basically, right? So she was shocked. Like she was shocked because she exposed to a different culture. Like they offer choices. And also individual choices are respected. If you order coffee, they won't give you tea, right? So she ordered coffee, and she was offered another choice, is like sugar or milk. And she was kind of, oh, this is like paradise. This is kind of heaven. Like, I was kind of, my individual choices was kind of respected. However, I don't think it's a culture shock for the cabin attendant because they are so used to that, right? It's normal, right? So reading this kind of principles probably won't be a big culture shock for many of us here, because it's kind of, it's okay. Yes, of course, I agree with that or something, but it could be very different, perceived by some other cultures. Maybe there's a guy practicing sports for many years, but never being, viewed as an individual sport, something like that. So individualism is embedded deeply in the Olympic spirit, and egalitarianism, which is another value, recognizes people as moral equals and rejects unequal distribution of power. So that's egalitarianism. I should switch back because we actually don't need to see all these details. These are the values. So egalitarianism recognizes people as moral equals and rejects the unequal distribution of power. Universalism is a belief that what is true and good can be discovered and applied universally. And furthermore, although it's not utterly, explicitly said, achievement through fair play. That's the fifth value, I would say, embedded in the Olympic spirit. And this encouraged the pursuit of success in competition, respecting rules and justice. So that's basically fair play. And fair play, for example, it's really a hard word to translate into Chinese. And there's a Chinese author, I don't know if you are familiar with, his name is Lu Xun, and he translated fair play as fair play. fair play. It's kind of because it's kind of lack of equivalent, right? Because respecting rules and justice, it's something probably not being very much emphasized or not be very much taught, in some different cultures. So just to think about, when a bus comes, people shall people stay in the line or just a crowd to the gate? So we had a good discussion. I think Hugh Sheng also knows about that. Like we had a good discussion on that. We have a few pictures on how people get into the bus in different cultures. And also we try not to stereotype that. So we just put black dots, but not a face, right? So we draw a box as a bus and the black dots. And so people will say, okay, those crowded there, they don't believe in fair play. They don't believe there's a rule, or they don't believe the rule can work, right? And those kind of stay in line, they believe so. However, one of our Japanese experts said, in Japan, people will stay even straighter than most of the Westerners, when they're getting into a bus or something. So these are all, these values embedded in the Olympics, actually they're facing a huge kind of challenge when it's promoted across the world. So although we can clearly see that individualism, for example, is very much emphasized in the second, third, and fourth principles, egalitarianism in the third, fourth, and fifth, harmonious from the first to the fourth, and achievements through fair play, first, third, and fourth, while universalism has been basically applied or can be seen in all of these 6 principles. And universalism, which is the which is very interesting. For a while we will comment on that. Is like, how could it be? Like, remember, universalism is kind of a belief that what is right and what is true can be discovered all around the world and can be applied universally. That's something, the Olympic Games believe so. Okay. And very interestingly, although we are not surprised, the life philosophy of the Olympic Games is about interpersonal relationship. Because we think about the purpose of organizing a game, or even a kind of event or a party, is about understanding through something. Like in a game, it's understanding through sporting competition. And individualism puts a person above the group of people. So that's why, in the Olympics, you will see like those best individuals, they will receive gold, silver, medals. Hi, Becky. So that's the individualism. And to tell you, is that a true story, or is that a kind of a funny joke? I'm not very much sure. When that time still was in China, still the Qing dynasty, the foreign minister got the invitation to not to participate, but to observe, to see the modern Olympics. So he went there, and then in his report back to the central government, is like say, well, I've seen so many poor Caucasians. They only have one ball, and 10 of them they are trying to get those balls. And in our heavenly dynasty, we don't need to bother that. We can give everyone a ball. And so you think about that. It's perceived already so differently, and harmoniousness is believes peaceful collaboration and harmonious relationship to be realized. And this is very much emphasized, especially in the modern Olympics. However, in many different cultures, people can reach harmoniousness through other ways, other channels. And achievement through fair play, we discussed that one. It's established the grounds and rules to success. Most of the values of the Olympic spirit are also related to international relationship. because the origin purpose of the ancient Olympic Games was to achieve peace among fighting nations. And this has been kind of inherited to the modern Olympics. And individualism is to respect each nation. And egalitarianism says that each nation is equal. Harmoniousness is the goal of peaceful world, accommodating various nations. And achievement through fair play encourages competition with justice. Fewer Olympic values, however, aim to improve intercultural understanding. So we say, okay, Olympic Games, the values, the spirit, it's more like on interpersonal relationship or more on international relationship. However, it's not very much on intercultural understanding. The reason I say that is that first, the ancient and modern Olympic Games were both initiated in Europe, where cultural diversity was that time not visible or not fully recognized at that time. And it's not difficult to see most of the Olympic values are culturally biased. And individualism, for example, encounters collectivism, which is often found in many Asian cultures. Egalitarianism likewise meets with culture who believes hierarchical power distribution. That's, for example, who should get the ball. Even, there's only one ball, of course, probably we pass that ball to the senior person. Is that right? Harmoniousness can be interpreted differently and reached via diverse paths. For example, we are all familiar with the Chinese term guanxi, and it's a way to reach harmoniousness, but it's a very complicated social interpersonal relationship networking strategy, which is not very much often used, for example, to reach harmoniousness in the Western culture. Look at the recent treaty signed between BC provincial government and the First Nations. Is that more based on guanxi? Is that because this government has a better guanxi with the First Nations, or is that through different channels to reach that treaty? Achievement through fair play could be challenged, where social justice system and law practice are different. So universalism is not only facing skepticism on ethnocentrism, but it's also opposing particularism, which believes unique circumstances determine what is right or good. So it's like, okay, it's based on the circumstances or the context. So we don't really have only one standard principle or something. Okay, in summary, the Olympic spirit is a set of culture-bound values. Therefore, inevitably, it will face misunderstanding, misinterpretation, mistrust, misuse, and miscommunication. And looking back at the history of the modern Olympic Games, the Olympic Games prioritize to promote international understanding through sporting competition has shown its limit, bias, and ambiguity cross-culturally. For example, we have seen the cancellation of the Games in 1916, 1940, 1944 due to the World Wars, the First and Second, and the terrorist intervention in 1972, financial difficulty in 1976, the two boycotts in 1980 and 84, doping and judging scandals in 88, and the questions surrounding the inclusion of professional athletes in 1992. Authentic Olympic spirit has been already challenged again and again. It cannot avoid the impacts from international relationships, financial and ethical dilemmas. In the post-9/11 era, we've seen the 2004 Games in Athens focused more on security than ever due to the shadow of the clash of civilizations. Cultural issues nearly overtook the sporting competition, which reveals the delicacy of the spirit in a world where different values get more chances to communicate and challenge each other than before. We have also seen the difficulty to keep the authenticity of the spirit, mainly because of universalism, might be a romantic dream, and multicultural harmony is too difficult to realize. What we are going to compare here is that take a look of the Beijing Olympic official website, and also take a look of the Vancouver Olympic official website. And let's see, what's the salient similarities, and also explore, why so, and also let's compare what's the salient differences, and also from intercultural perspective to see why so. There are two very interesting similarities here. It's like the Beijing and Vancouver, they are doing something very much similar. The first one is to bring up agreeable values forward while modifying and hiding the less preferred values. And the second one, what Beijing and Vancouver are doing, although they are from different culture backgrounds, but they are still trying to do the same thing, is to promote the city agenda by using the values from the Olympic spirit. Let me explain these two to you. We have 5 fundamental Olympic values, and which one, for example, is not so acceptable, or which one is not so ideal, not so comfortable for the organizers in Beijing and in Vancouver, respectively. What's your guess? Let's look at the Vancouver site. It basically has most of the values embedded in this website. We've seen, competition. We've seen individualism. We've seen egalitarianism. We've seen this or that, but one value is missing. It's the harmoniousness, which is subtly replaced by this word, sustainability, which is not exactly the same thing. However, there's a reason for that. The harmony is in Vancouver may not be the most preferred value starting from the bidding process. And so Vancouver is facing, for example, the challenge to widen the transportation routes, like the sea-to-sky highway connecting Vancouver and Whistler. And it has been a controversial project due to the lack of consideration of the harmony with the mother nature and the communities living by the highway. And Vancouver then tried to strategically replace the harmony with another word, sustainability. Is that what you are doing, boss, over there? Okay. So, well, yeah, okay. So, well, you must have a different dictionary than mine. This sustainability has 6 principles: ecological limits, interdependence, long-term view, inclusiveness, equity, and health communities. If you are interested, you actually can drag down this menu. Where's my mouse? Here. So we can show you all these different sub-values. And they look like harmony, although the difference between these two words cannot be ignored. Harmony fundamentally emphasizes agreement in feeling or opinion. Sustainability contains the root verb sustain, which essentially means to keep in existence, to maintain. And to maintain or to agree, that's a huge difference. It's understandable that to reach a harmonious agreement takes longer time and requires more efforts than to maintain the existing situation. Therefore, my analysis showed like it is naturally Vancouver Organizational Committee will of course substitute the value of harmony in their website. What is another kind of uncomfortable value, for example, for Beijing to carry on? It's basically on the individual rights, and sports competition, all these things, that's fine, because Chinese are not anymore 100 years old, not anymore the Chinese 100 years ago. So they're used to that, and China is a big nation, collecting a lot of medals in each recent Olympics, that's fine. However, each individual's rights, how are we going to respect that? Or we put it in a different way, it's like, how about human rights? How about human rights? So if we type in human rights and search in this official website, yes, of course we will get results. However, if you read each link that they provide, it's more about to respect people with disabilities because of that Olympic game. However, it's not to respect each individual. So that's, again, quite subtly changed, switched. So look at, Beijing Olympic Games, their website. They will say, yes, we also talk about rights. We also talk about human rights. So don't worry about that. However, it's a quite different understanding of human rights from the original Olympic spirit. So these are the things like we actually can explore further. For example, if you type in Falun Gong in this Beijing official website, what's your guess?
Smoke comes up.
Well, probably they will have a warning sign like, what are you doing? So I don't know. Let's try. Sorry, there's no result that, right? Of course, Falun Gong, some of them, I don't know, it probably become a split organization, with different beliefs, but some of them, they believe Falun Gong is only a Qi Gong, which is a traditional sport activity, which probably can be included, as the shadow boxing or the Tai Chi was kind of included in the Olympic Games, or like the these other traditional, sport things. But, well, it's not recognized. And however, you go back and review the fundamental principles, it says, any form of discrimination with regards to a country or person on grounds of race, religion, politics, gender, or otherwise is incompatible with the belonging of the Olympic movement. That's principle number 5. So, and another interesting search I made is on a gold medalist, Tian Liang, who has not such a harmonious or good relationship with the organizing committee. So if you put in Tian Liang, I tried that, you also cannot find anything. Although he's an Olympic medalist, like he got quite a few, I think, from Zhenyi. But it's again, not a searchable one. And why so, it's obvious, right? So that's the first similarity, is that look at these websites, they will promote the Olympic values, but only those acceptable. The second salient similarity is to promote a city agenda, which is not strange or not new actually. Starting from Los Angeles '84, we've already seen this becomes more and more important, even overtake the whole idea of the Olympics. So highlighted in both official websites, the city agendas of Beijing and Vancouver dominate nearly every page. So if you have time, you can just go through each page. The Beijing #1 priority is to increase international visibility of Beijing as well as the whole nation, China. One word, one dream. It's here. One word, one dream is the slogan included in the headline banner of each web page in the official site. It's an echo of universalism in the spirit, because the spirit says universalism, and the Chinese interpretation is one word, one dream. However, it expresses a national ambition far beyond celebrating humanities and sports in the world, which can be perceived from their strategic objectives and strategic principles. So if you time, you can go through that. And Beijing bid for the 2000 but lost. It could not wait or lose anymore, so a 2008 bid was logical for the municipal and central government, because this seems the right time to show the world dramatic changes happened in Beijing and China since 1980. Development and peace are the footnotes for the dreams here. Development and peace. So, Beijing likes to share it with the world, as China might want to have a couple more decades to develop in a peaceful international environment. And so the Olympic spirit, which promotes peace and achievement, fits here. Therefore, the strategic objective highlighted in the official website, Beijing aims to promote the modernized Beijing as well as the rest of the country to create a new image of Beijing. Beijing naturally wants to host as many international visitors as possible so that the Olympic Games is an ideal showcase stage in 2008. Vancouver, on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, has a different agenda to stimulate local economy and to increase and later sustain employment and business opportunities, using the Olympic spirit related to the egalitarian. Vancouver highlighted participation with subtitles such as job opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and official merchandising opportunities. By doing so, Vancouver promotes the 2010 Games as an opportunity for a most wide and equal participation possibility. So that's also another way, is like, yes, we are organizing the game or we are organizing the party, but here are the 5 values you can play with. So Beijing will use, universalism, yes, but the interpretation of that is, let's have a peaceful world so that China can continuously develop so that it won't be disturbed. And Vancouver will say, let's participate. That's the emphasis. And the salient differences, what I found when I compare these 2 web pages, basically, is that they are doing something just to the opposite direction. First of all, is the emblems. These 2 emblems, and the Chinese seal, Dancing Beijing, is the official emblems for Beijing 2008. And it's the official interpretation of it is that it's filled with Beijing hospitality and hopes and carries the city commitment to the world. And the rationale posted online, Beijing expressed the eagerness to join the international community with commitment and a new face. It's often said in the Beijing website, everything's new Beijing, new China, new image. So what's interesting here is that Beijing is using something old for new. So something very much familiar to nearly all the Chinese, a seal, which basically means commitment. And this kind of red seal, the pattern, it's quite also very much familiar. However, the official interpretation of that in the Beijing website, and also the way they elaborate about the Dancing Beijing seal, is something new. Beijing is new, China is new, this is new opportunity, join us, celebrate that. Vancouver, with the Atlantic album, might be seen walking to a nearly different opposite direction, namely to pick up something or to add history, heritage, culture, and tradition as much as possible. The sorry for my pronunciation. Yes, word for friend, Ilanic, is not familiar to most Canadians and international audiences. And so, when you Google, for example, Canada, there's a Google subpage called Google Images. So you go to Google Image and you Google Canada, you won't see an Inuit symbol represent Canadian. You Google that, you see some Canadian faces, you see more maple leaves here and there. So it's not traditionally and not internationally recognized as a Canadian symbol. So the stacked rock formation was not always being in the so-called mainstream Canadian galleries. The spirit and culture integrated to the rocks might not always been told or known to many Canadians. This is something new, although it's old, right? But this is something very new to Canadians. However, the Canadians are using something new to go back to the past, to something older, to add the historical, traditional heritage. So that means, Canada has been a long time, kind of friendly nation to all the world. So what's interesting is that in Beijing, from such a nascent culture, it's representing something kind of modern, new. However, Vancouver, as a young city, is trying to extend its collective memory and pride of culture and tradition by a multicultural, inclusive approach. That's the first salient differences. The second differences is the way to convince and motivate people and organizations. Of course, we all know, run such a big game, such a big event, we need to have a lot of thousands of volunteers. Otherwise, we really cannot run that, right? So, for example, BC government is organizing a big kind of provincial, it's kind of organizing a volunteer team, recruiting from the provincial staff, who'd like to work in the Beijing pavilion, in the Canadian pavilion in Beijing, right? Because it's basically not a paid job, but it's a great opportunity, and from a 30 million population Canada, everyone nearly needs to go, because 3 Beijing equals a whole Canada in general. Or if we say Beijing officially, they say they have 10 million people, but there are also other guesses, like Beijing will have 15 or 20 million people, right? So basically, if you like to maintain a very interactive communication in the Canadian pavilion, nearly every Canadian shall go there and to introduce Canada to the Chinese. So how to motivate these people to join such a so-called exciting event? People are doing that and looking at the comparing these two websites. There are also different strategies. Let me talk about the Vancouver one first. Vancouver, okay. One approach is to focus on the socio-economical impact, such as preferably benefits received from that game. So try to convince not only the people in BC province, but the whole Canada that every Canadian will get benefit from organizing and participating in such a game. And also, another way to do that, for example, is the countdown pictures. I don't know, because I'm studying this, so I frequently check back, and they are changing the pictures nearly every day. So, and also welcome, if you have a digital photo, you just send to them, they will post there, the countdown pictures. So you go to Beijing countdown, you don't see those kind of pictures, this may not be viewed as a proper picture to the Beijing organizers. So excuse me, we need to go back to the main page. In the Beijing official website, yes, it's counting down, but you don't see every people representing there. So you don't actually see, a local Beijing people is kind of smiling to you or to tell you their story, their participation in the sport. On the contrary, when we compare, although Beijing's only 265 days to go, you see Beijing's quite relaxing on that side. How to motivate people, how to organize people, how to recruit volunteers. You don't see that from their front page. You don't see those things in their sub-pages. Beijing is quite relaxing. Say, well, don't worry, we will have people. Of course, in China there are many people, but Beijing's not doing too much on that side. However, when you see Vancouver, it's always try to convince people, yes, join this, please contribute, because well, partly we will be short of hand, or another thing is you shall be proud of it. The possible explanation of this is that with a strong central government, for example in China, there's no need to call up individual organizational support. Or B, with a strong central government, each individual and organization have no excuse not to support the preparation. But when you look further, compare further, look the story, in the Beijing webpage, you actually can see both of these represented. You will see an interview with a Beijing local person, and the local person say, of course, this is my family business, right? It's happening in front of my house, so we of course will support that. So it's kind of pre-assumed that all the people will support that, which is a different story in Vancouver. In Vancouver, there's still a kind of worry. What if there are people opposing that? Of course, in Vancouver, we've seen quite a few mini events already happened. I think many of us will remember when Luhan said, media is communication in the 1950s. It's kind of brought us to a new era of communication studies. Look at the media. However, with what we can see nowadays is that technology or media is not a big thing, because look at these web pages. What Vancouver can do, Beijing also can do that. They probably have the same software, and they probably have the same IT person or IT proficiency for these things. So it's not a big problem, and there are also internet users. In China and in Canada, there's not such a big difference. So these are not anymore the predominant factor to influence on the communication. So when we talk about communication, we have sender, channel of the message, channel and the message, receiver, and feedback. These are factors. So in my last presentation, a few years ago, I talked about receiver's perception. However, now let's shift this back to the sender. So International Olympic Committee provide Vancouver and Beijing the same fundamental values, but they all use web pages. They all use the same technology, and they are all targeting this kind of basically the same audience, first the local, then international. However, are they doing the same thing? And are they representing the same value? From our analysis, we've seen that not exactly. Each city will promote their own city agenda. Each city will hide those not acceptable values or substitute it with other words, and each city will do will design something differently, either looking forward or looking back, or motivate, recruit people in a different way. So what broadly, like when we broadly think about intercultural communication, we probably will have a bigger question. Just to take the Olympic Games as a case study, we would probably think, is it possible to accurately interpret an authentic values through communication? Is it possible? So in the traditional intercultural communication studies, which is very much focusing on the interpersonal communication, say, okay, because your nonverbal signals are different from mine, or your verbal communication style is different from mine, or there are still researchers said, okay, we cannot separate personality or personal preference from culture. So that's why we all know that Hofstede set up this kind of triangle model. Say like every one of us will represent, a combination of three different layers of, factors. Say human nature, culture, and personality. So human nature is something we just we're born as a human. So we like, we will feel cold, or we will feel thirsty, we will feel hungry. And then culture is like, each culture will teach the kids to behave, to react to this kind of hungry or thirsty or cold in different ways. So, and then each person will have their own personal preference. So I would say that's a very nice theory, and also that's a great attempt to explain, what can make misunderstandings. So, okay, I misunderstood you, so I can attribute back to my personality, because I'm a different person from you. Or I can say I'm from a different culture. Of course, I won't say I'm from the Mars, but so human nature is basically we share, right? However, we will ask the question like, where is the boundary between personal preferences and culture? Can you say like, I like to drink tea, is my culture, or is that my personal preference? That theory really cannot explain that, because we are an individual, at the same time we are also a cultural being. So we represent both, and we really cannot split. I say, okay, I'm now a cultural being, so I use my cultural being way to say something to you. No, because I, of course, will have my personal influence on that. Okay. However, by doing such a research, like we compare inter-organizational communication, we actually can find a kind of shortcut. As a researcher, we actually don't need to worry about split or get rid of the personal influence, because this is a collective production, and there's no such a strong personal influence, and this is not a very much human thing, although of course it's by human beings. So this is a pure cultural product, and so this is very interesting. So it's like I give you a product and you promote, as an organization, you basically is doing something cultural, and then I give the same thing to another culture. People are doing this again, collectively a cultural thing, and by comparing these two, you actually can find what's the difference of these cultures. So that's why some of you ask, I'm not a big Olympic fan. I cannot compare with most of you. I'm not such a big one. But why I study Olympics, because this is such a neat one, because this story, the tale of two cities, will repeat every 4 years. And it's neat. You can, as a researcher, I like to continue this, because every 4 years you can compare different ways of doing things in different corners of the world, because the fundamental message is the 5 rings, or the 5 fundamental values, always the same, but people are just doing things differently. So, and also moreover, this research illustrates the potential for intercultural studies to step outside of the interpersonal relationship study, but to step into a non-interpersonal communication field, which is not conventionally recognized by the interculturalists or by the other academic researchers. Branding, public relationship, image building, website design, and many other non-interpersonal interactions can gain benefits from intercultural observations and insights. In fact, these interactions are often reflecting collective values of a culture and contain less personality-related factors, which is even better research materials for intercultural analysis. So it is exciting to notice that, for example, a company or a brand is presented so differently online for various markets or consumers, just like Olympic spirit inevitably be interpreted in many different ways. So how can we neglect the impact of culture on these communication? And back to the Olympic Games, A Tale of the Two Cities will not end, and it will continue with the next pair. So that concludes my presentation. And well, thank you very much for your attention. And I'd like to now open the floor for questions and comments. Thank you very much. Yes?
I have a short question. You said at the beginning it would be easier for Vancouver to prepare the Olympics because they have less cultural barriers than Beijing.
Mm.
After listening to your very interesting presentation, I feel the opposite.
Yeah.
You agree?
Well, well, why do you feel it's so difficult now? You feel it's just the opposite?
Yeah,
like
I feel it's easier for Beijing because you mentioned that population we have convinced people or provinces or whatever, that's a good thing for the economy and so on and so on, or for the country. It's just a big difference.
Well, operational level.
Yeah. Secondly, I say that because when you talk of Beijing or Shanghai, you're not talking about elderly lady being shocked because they offered tea or coffee to her.
Mm.
These people are very modern. They have traveled, and most of the sports champions of China have been around. So the cultural differences are not so great that we seem to say for the people involved in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe still there's. Yes.
So you still think it's more difficult for Vancouver? It's easier for Vancouver to prepare the Olympics than Beijing?
Well, it's both difficult. It's not on that level. Operational level, it's easier for Beijing to manage that.
Yeah.
Not because Beijing has a closer value with the Olympic spirit, but because Beijing has been for a long time a very centralized, power, so that it actually can distribute the task to each unit. And a miracle can happen because you build a building, it can take overnight, appear in Beijing, but in Vancouver, well, you wait, right? So that's operational level, easier for Beijing. However, on the cultural values, actually, will Beijing people accept or agree with the Olympic values before or after the Olympics?
I think that the average Canadian thinks that the Olympic values when they don't see the hockey game between Russia and Canada.
Well, that's another interesting topic we actually.
We all agree with you about the values, but the average person in the Olympics, I don't think they give a big damn about the values.
In one of the Olympic studies, it says the Olympic values is just ideal, although it's set by the Westerners. Even Westerners cannot reach there. That's kind of just. Well, excuse me. Okay.
I just want to say I have to leave because of my party.
Oh, okay.
And I'm sorry if I leave now.
Okay, well, it's, okay.
Yeah.
We all respect justice, right?
Yeah, I thought there were a number of very interesting things. It'd be great to follow up on this. And one thought I just wanted to raise is all of this stuff falls into the trap of comparative research where you're comparing apples and oranges. And I think the one thing that came to mind in the beginning of this is by looking at the IOC's statement on human rights, I think it's very easy to put our modern twist on human rights issues and put them in. If you go back to that page, the number 4, it says the human right is the right to participate. It says nothing about all the bigger things that we're putting into human rights issues. And I think that's the issue. The Olympic idea of human rights was the right that each person ought to have to participate.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you extrapolate this to all these other issues, it gets to be problematic. I don't know whether you agree or not.
Well, first, yes, this is a typical comparative study, which we actually didn't invite a dialogue, for example, between VANOC and the Beijing Olympic Committee, and we didn't actually observe any interaction. These are two still, staying over their communication messages, and we just compare. And this is just a branch of the intercultural communication study. Usually, the intercultural communication study would like to continue, dig further with an interactive solution. Right. The second thing on the human rights, I use that only as an example to explain, like, what if something not so comfortable to a culture, but they have to convey in their message? How are they going to do that? So that's only as an example. Thank you. Yeah, this lady. Yeah.
Well, I have a couple of comments. It's too bad that this gentleman had to leave, because I think what's really important to remember is that values operate at an unconscious level. Not at a conscious level, right? We don't know, when we go to a hockey game, do we think about individualism and fair play? No, we don't, because we were raised to believe that these things are part of who we are, and so we live that way. We don't consciously think about those things. The only thing is, I understand those the Olympic principles. I tend to think that, and I think what you're trying to say is these 5 principles come from Greece, come from the ancient Olympics, and as such, because Greece is a Western, gave rise to Western civilization, and we are a Western country. It's easier for us to put on the Olympics because these values are in sync with who we are, right? Is that what you're saying? The only thing is harmony, which is one of those 5 values. Harmony is a very Asian value, right? I tend to think that North Americans and Westerners in general, and North Americans in particular, harmony is not a value that we have very high on our list.
Conflict.
Different interpretations of the meaning of the word harmony.
Could be, yeah. Well, thank you very much for your comment on the value. And yes, we are living, as a cultural being, but most of the time we're not so conscious about, what are the values. Probably the Olympic Committee, when they say these things, they also haven't really, realized what they are. Yes, and harmony. Yes, harmony. Harmony, I would say, in the recent kind of years in Western media, it's presented as more often as a Western, or as an Eastern philosophy of life. So that it's quite attractive, right? And even integrate with this yin and yang, and feng shui and these philosophy. But the harmony, like what I explained in my presentation, is basically focusing on how people reach harmonious stage through negotiation, or through avoiding conflict, or through say conversation or dialogue, or through kind of let's say good social relationship or something. So probably you interview like you said, you may not rank it very high, but you still like it. But you interview most of the people here, for example, people will say, yes, I agree, a harmonious stage is great. But how people will reach there. It's kind of a different way. Like we have a researcher at Toledo, like he's doing learning from the land research project related to the Saanich First Nations, and reached harmonious stage with the Saanich people. It's like from his explanation, like sounds to me, it's like 5 days kayaking plus a long time in the sweating lounge and a lot of singing, a lot of listening, even if it's not a dialogue. So that's different from each culture. Thank you.
Professor, I like very much the way that you illustrated how a culture is able to present itself using a medium. I just wonder if you could take your research a little bit further and try and speculate on what happens 9 months from now when 20,000 journalists all over the world descend on Beijing. What does the government do then to project this image that is projected here? Or are there any strategies for that?
Yes, put them all into a hotel. and lock the door, yes. So, yeah, well, yeah, you're right. But the difference here, what we are talking about is, this is projected image. This is a blue sky ideal image that, so for example, Beijing and Vancouver, they try to reach. However, the reality, or how people will reveal the reality, or how people will transfer that, it's different. Yes, you are right. It should be kind of studied further.
The Central Government must be considering this fact.
Oh, well, they're very experienced. Don't worry about that. But however, well, we won't say there's no census, in the Western culture, but it's looser, much looser than that. But yeah, well, Beijing's very experienced on organizing international events, without leaking unwanted stories or something. Yeah. So, but it's very interesting. Are you in there? Okay. So, well, next time you tell us your story.
I saw this week I think it was an Australian newspaper, an article about the training of the Fuyuan.
The volunteers over there.
The volunteers who will be helping foreign journalists and foreign athletes during the Beijing Olympics. And the training is almost Spartan. It's very, very severe. It's they are in a school, and they are chosen with very, very severe standards, and so they have to be very beautiful. They have to be young, and they have to be they have to. So they learn all the same very so to give this very standard image of Beijing. So I think that's another way for the Beijing government to give an image. It's like training everyone exactly the same.
Yeah.
So to control this image. So I find it very interesting.
Yeah. What is Vancouver doing? Preparing the volunteers?
They're probably,
I can say something about that.
Okay.
Yeah, there are so many things to comment on that I won't do that because I spoil the discussion for everybody. But one thing I want to mention, you said that it is more difficult, or you implied it is more difficult for Vancouver to organize the games. Now consider me a propagandist for VANOC in this sense, but we have an excellent cooperation with government partners and First Nations. And that makes it easier for us to organize the games. It is completely different than Beijing. I don't underestimate the job that we have, but it is made a lot easier by the excellent cooperation we have. Now for volunteers, we haven't even started recruiting volunteers yet.
Too late.
You already see it on the website. We need 25,000 volunteers. On the International Volunteer Day, which is the 5th of December, our official campaign will start. And then the websites are open, information is given. And we need volunteers from all walks of life. As you know, we think that these games should be Canada's games, so people from all walks of life in Canada should be represented in our volunteer corps. And we will be giving information about how to do things, how to deal with journalists, how to deal with dignitaries, how to remove snow, all kinds of jobs. But in general, it will be quite different than what they do in Beijing.
Yeah. Terry.
Yeah, although it's not one of the 5 rings, I think the birth of the Olympic movement was very much, took place in a place where nation states and nationalism was a really important factor. So I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why it's easier in Beijing to get the country behind the Olympics in a way that you can't do in Vancouver. Not only is China presenting itself to the world and coming up, it's like the Tokyo Olympics back in 1964. It was the defining moment in the history of the country. But in fact, China's more than a nation. China's a culture in a way that Vancouver doesn't represent a culture. It just virtually represents a city, whereas Beijing represents a 1/5 of the world's population, a 1/4 of the world's population, and it is a culture and a nation. And that's why I would think that it would have a lot of support from people there.
Yeah, across the whole nation, yes. Nationalism is one kind of like one basic tool used to, even during the bidding process for the 2000. Nationalism is kind of the new China or something. But yes, that's a big difference, because in Vancouver it's viewed as a kind of regional or local thing. Even so that's very different. And also in China, the media makes all the Chinese so proud of it. And one thing is like there are 5 of these Wawa, right? And so they represent 5 different regions, 5 different ethnic groups, 5 different kind of sports, and 5 different fundamental elements, because the Chinese believe those earth, fire, or something. So it's very much basically to unite, like what you said, to unite the nation together to set up a new focus. Yeah, that's why it's much bigger than the sport event. Yeah, thank you, Terry. Yes.
Yes. You started out saying that the Olympics were started in Greece, and of course we all know that the Olympics developed as a Western institution, and the 5 values that the movement emphasizes clearly are Western values. However, in my opinion, they are also highly regarded in Chinese culture. Now, have you talked a little about that too?
What are these 5 values?
Yeah. I think in each one of them would be highly regarded in Chinese culture, which brings me to the point that there must be values that are quite universally shared and accepted. And these 5 are among those. And the differences in countries and in cultures probably are a matter of emphasis. Well, that is my own optimistic view of humanity, but I don't know it much.
Well,
you would agree with that.
Yeah, they are theories and also frameworks. And I think basically represent what you said. It's like values are all across, cultures, they all recognize that, but just how people rank them. Or there's also explanation on how people will approach to because there are 2 sets, basically there are 2 sets of values. One's called terminal, one is called approachable. So, or you can say that the desired and the desirable values. For example, honesty. you know, you go to each culture, each person, you say, do you value honesty? They will honestly tell you that they yes. But then, what will happen is, like, for example, there's a quite well-known kind of test, questionnaire done by Trump now. Like, what if, you know, you got a car collision, you were sitting there, your friend's driving that, then how are you going to apply, you know, honesty value? Because you will probably surrender it to friendship. That's another set of the value, good relationship, or these things. So that what you said, you know, can be has already, you know, got a strong theoretical ground. But another case is like when you compare different cultures or different reactions from different cultures, it's still, you see, like, people have different preferences. And collectivism and individualism is something usually challenge the viewpoints, like what you said, is that they are cultures more kind of collective-oriented, group-oriented. And that is something, you know, we still haven't found, you know, a way to work that thing out. Yeah, thank you.
In detail.
Okay.
I just have thank you very much, Dr. Lee, that was very enlightening. A point to make that this is intercultural study, right? But have you thought about in relationship with economics, because these two nations are slightly different in their economic stance, right? One being, you know, looking for development, right? Another one is a way to develop people, selective growth, right? So they have a selective in terms of what you meant to hold and not to hold it. It's more like a balancing portfolio. If you're looking at like a fund, you buy a fund or a mutual fund, you know, this is like beginning, you're doing development growth. And this other nation has already done that, so people want to buy new funds, right? So they want more, you know, they don't look for, you know, 100% increase, looking for maybe 10, 20 they're happy with. So in that economic situation, there will be a difference in how much of a strong support you'll get from the, you know, population. As well, I find interesting about individualism versus the unity. I think the fact that individualism and harmony are placed top two versus the 5 values says a lot about where the nations are in terms of, again, the overall status in terms of how they pursue the goals. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, well...
So you have more individualism than people have more say, that means it's harder in some way to, you know, get something across, whereas nobody says anything. A political leader could just, you know, get on to, again, easier by suppressing human rights.
Well, that sounds to me is a typical collectivist society, culture, typical behavior from that. Yeah, well, economical reason, political reason, you know, that's something, you know, when we compare, for example, Olympics, we cannot, first, we cannot neglect that. Second, we actually cannot separate that. So that's the limitation of this research, is that we picked up something, you know, has economical, political, and cultural motivations. So, but then we cannot say, okay, they set up this image basically for what? So in an ideal situation, we like to pick up something that's pure culture by two organizations, to the world, and from the same source. So that's quite difficult. But current research I'm involved in is on health communication, which probably is even, you know, closer, you know, to this goal, is that everyone will have birth, death, sickness, and health, you know, these things. And everyone will, of course, will prefer longer life. Not everyone, I estimate, you know. But how people will transfer that message, you know, and how people will be convinced by their physicians, if the physicians from a different culture, they say, you know, you just take drink some orange juice, but that person is expecting to get some strong medicine. Both of them, they are aiming at the same goal, is to, have a healthy life or something. So, yeah.
The Western medicine versus the Chinese tradition.
Well, there are all kind of different medical things, right? Yeah. So, but thank you very much.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to draw things to a close today. I'd like to thank Dr. Lee very much for this presentation. On behalf of the David Lamb Center, I have a small gift of appreciation for you.
Thank you.
I'm sure that Dr. Lee will be here to answer any individual questions that you were able to ask in the group session.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.